Hello, everyone. My name is Bhavika, and I'm going to be the moderator for MD-PhD tips in applying in interviewing and applying in the COVID area. So I just want to start off by saying that we will have a presentation for the first half, and then for the last ending portion, we're going to do Q&A. And so if you have any questions, feel free to type it in the chat, or if you'd like to unmute yourself when the presentation is over, you can, and then go ahead and ask questions to the speaker.
Okay, welcome. My name is José Cavazos. I'm an MD-PhD, physician scientist in neurology, specifically in epilepsy. I have been attending the UC Davis conference for many years. I was just remembering 2012, I believe, was my first time. So I am an assistant dean, a professor, tenured professor in neurology, neuroscience, and physiology. And currently, I also serve as the chair of the National Association of MD-PhD programs, as well as the AAMC Great MD-PhD section. I am using some of the slides that I will be showing you here that were developed by the communications group out of the committee out of the AAMC. So the meeting, the first part is being recorded so that you know, for putting into YouTube, hopefully to educate others. So I am the director of the MD-PhD program, MSTP, NIH-funded MSTP from South Texas at the University of Texas Health San Antonio. And so this is my group, and it's the most diverse program, MSTP program in the nation. And you know, we have people from all over kinds and walks of life up here. So the question quite often that people do is, who are we? Who are physician scientists? We're actually 3% of the graduates to MD programs. Only 3%, but we account for 60% of the NIH funding grants to physicians. So it's a small group of people who get a lot of training into both disciplines. So, you know, this is just a cartoon. The reality is that we serve as an intermediary between the scientists and the clinicians, and many of us are doing translational research, but many of us are also doing bench or clinical research. So who are we? We are fascinated by human disease, have an aptitude for science, curious, creative, teach, and have patience and grit. So let's take a look at the MD path. Yes, indeed, from MD, you can do research-focused residency and then spend a few years doing and earning the stripes, and only 1% of people stay as NIH-funded, R01-funded investigators in the long run. Why? Because people need to earn the stripes, learn the complexities of science at a greater level. So now, if you look at the PhD pathway, it's also a different pathway. And, you know, about 18% of them end up doing biomedical research, R01 funded, 15 years later. Contrast that to MD PhD. 43% of the individuals are NIH R01 funded, and 53% are doing research more than 50% of time. So the success rate for MD PhDs is much greater to accomplish research. Why? Because research is complicated. Research, you are competing against 100%ers who have the training, who understand the complexity, and knowing everything is impossible. What you do become is an expert on a very small area of research, very small area of clinical, and they are connected, and so you become the world leader in that particular area. Now, across the nation, there are 110 MD-PhD programs affiliated with one of the 186 medical schools, and there are 1,500 or so MD-PhD students. 50 programs, 51 to be precise, get support from the NIH for something called the MSTP, the Medical Scientist Training Program, but that only pays for 25% of the slots. So the majority of people are getting slots from other sources, but we provide not only medical school tuition fees and benefits, but we also provide you a stipend of $30,000 or so, which in San Antonio goes very far. But many programs across the nation have a very similar type of approach. Now, so we try to connect these two fields. And as I said, despite that in this Venn diagram, it looks like fairly large, it's only 3% of the workforce who is doing this. So it's a very small piece. So this is a cartoon that exemplifies my career so that you understand a little bit better what happens to people. I have published in terrific journals like Science and Nature and other ones of that sort. But I have done basic science observations, clinical trials, healthcare outcomes, and in my spare time, I was a co-founder for one of the startup companies that took an idea to the market through clinical trials, regulatory trials, and FDA de novo clearance to develop a seizure detector based of electromyography. The story behind all of this is I am focusing on epilepsy and seizures. So I am a fellowship and board certified epileptologist by the American Board of Psychiatry and Neurology, but I also have a PhD that I study the basic underlying mechanisms of seizures in experimental animal models, but using the same concepts. I have asked questions from databases. If we combine mechanisms of actions, drugs with different mechanisms versus similar mechanism of action, do we get more bang for the buck or less? So it's a mindset, and that's what you need to understand, that being a physician scientist is a mindset. It's a mindset that allows you to become one of the world-renowned experts on a particular field. Now, the COVID pandemic created a lot of monumental challenges to all of us. We're doing this virtually. Well, maybe this is going to be an innovative thing that is going to stay, that we are going to be using technology to be doing recruiting in a different ways, and reaching out to all of you in different manners. So how do we do the review? It is a holistic review. We're looking for integrity and maturity. We want you to become scientists. We want you to become doctors. And so we need that you have had some experiences in both. Now, in general, research is the most important aspect for physician scientists. We have here a scholarship that is worth $500,000 or $1 million in some cases, because we're going to be supporting you through this process for 7 to 9 years. But we are paying entirely your tuition and stipend and fees. But we really need to know that you have done the experiences and you have earned these stripes to be able to know whether research is right for you. Yes, indeed, we want and we look for an academic's record. While stellar academic records will make an applicant more noted, if they don't have significant research experiences, it's not going to be accepted. is not going to be invited for interview. So, but we do need you to do about 100 hours at least of clinical shadowing, preferably shadowing a physician scientist, because we think differently than regular physicians. Now, how do you get into research? Well, you do multiple research summer projects. If you are in a community college, you may need to jump into a four-year university, an R1 in university that has more research experiences. You can apply for some of the summer experiences at NIH or postbac experiences. Certainly, you can do a senior research thesis, and many students do a postbac. I highly recommend the postbaccalaureate program at NIH. Look it up. NIH postbac is a terrific program. They pay you about $30,000 to pursue research in a lab at NIH. And so while you are learning and training and perhaps studying for the MCAT, you are learning valuable lessons about what physician scientists are, who are the scientists, how are we advancing research. In particular, we need to make sure that you become very familiar with testing a hypothesis. This is the key aspect of the scientific method. You understand the experimental design, you have your proper controls, and your results are gonna test what did you learn in regard of testing this hypothesis. We are looking for budding scientists, not for technicians. Technicians we can hire. So the point here is that you eventually take some ownership in some of these research projects, and that you are presenting them as first author in a conference, or you submit eventually a manuscript. Now, that doesn't mean that every single student needs to have manuscripts in order to be competitive. That's not the case. We examine students based on the opportunities that they have had and how much they have been able to do and achieve with those opportunities. Again, diversity of thought is very critical and very important to us. So yes, we're looking for career commitment to the career of being physician scientist. This is a long career, but everything is taken care of. Okay, so you are not going to be aiming to develop a private practice in a rural. Sorry, was muted for a second. Sorry. So that's not the intent. The intent is that you are becoming an academic faculty member that is going to be pursuing scientific research as an independent investigator or part of a research institute like NIH or CDC, or you're going to be helping industry put together trials and discovery of new compounds that are going to be bringing discoveries to the clinic. So a strong academics is important. Some experience in caring for others and empathy is very critical, but keep in mind, productive research, integrity and maturity, and activity in life experiences are all important, okay? So an application is not built overnight. It takes time, okay? And if you have a hiatus of 3 months, don't worry. You need actually years of commitment to this career. You may go 3 months and travel and meet the world. This is a life experience, or you may have a experience where you do not have the ability to go and join a research lab for a period of time because of COVID. It's okay. We take all experiences into consideration. And as you can tell, the application review is holistic, and the programs are trying to become flexible to accommodate applicants' needs. Okay, so for those who are doing virtual interviews, find a strong location with good good Wi-Fi. And if you are needing to do this, go to a public library, test your equipment, dress professionally, and use good lighting because you want to be seen. Use a virtual backdrop. We provide, for example, a backdrop that is entirely black because what we want to do is focus on the applicant and what the applicant is bringing to the table. Okay, be passionate. We want people who are going to have the resilience and grit to succeed in this career. In science, you throw the dice on a daily basis in the lab, and very few times you get lucky and get stuff done. But you need to do it in a systematic manner. Okay, so how long does it take? I'm sorry for the way that it exported into this, but the application may take 2 to 3 years of thinking and planning and doing doing research experiences. You apply in this summer for getting into the program the following summer. During the fall and winter, you have interviews, and then you get acceptances in the winter or the early spring. So it takes a year and a half. What you should be looking: environment, what the location is like, what their alumni have accomplished. Location is important, but are you a good fit for the institution? That's the most important question that you need to be asking. Do you feel, as you are getting into the application, into the interview process, that you see yourself as one of their students? A good fit is important. Nationally, 5,500 students. There are 1,800 applicants every year. And while there are 670 matriculants, there's 800 or so acceptances. So the acceptance rate is about 40%. Now, some people may decline an MD-PhD acceptance because they got an MD acceptance in a place that fits better their needs, and that's okay. Now, importantly, 46% are women. So we're increasing this number. It used to be in the 30s. And quite a few people are racial and ethnic minorities. And that's an important. We are the most diverse program with over 30% minorities in our program. And if you include also socioeconomic diversity of low socioeconomic status, it's over 50% of our students are of diverse backgrounds. And that is important. That's what we want. We want a class that reflects the nation. A state of residency does not matter for MD-PhD programs. Okay, so California applicants are welcome to apply. Texas, yes, for MD, it's a different story. But for MD PhD, we're looking for the best and brightest across the nation. Now, international students are accepted on a case-by-case basis in our particular program, and that is because I'm guaranteeing you funding for 7 to 9 years, not just of funding for your tuition, but I'm also giving you stipend to fees and for living expenses as well as health insurance. Now, this is the national numbers. These are the national numbers of applicants. This year, actually, the mean number seems to be closer to 511, and the GPA is close to be 3.61. It's about the same, with a huge range of applications. Now, notice that the matriculants, okay, are from 501 to 528. So a fairly large, broad place. One number doesn't define you. Multiple numbers do. And I have said this multiple times. This is my school. These are the applicants. Every dot is an applicant. We had 626 applicants in 3 years, and 503 who had a GPA better than 3.0 or an MCAT better than 45% or higher are shown here. And every dot is an applicant that will receive the application, read their application. Any blue dot is an applicant that was invited, and notice that we go beyond. But those people have very interesting and compelling stories. And we have given some low, some acceptances to individuals with low numbers, and that's okay. One number doesn't define you, multiple numbers do. Okay, so research experience. Now, what happens to us? This is the people who are in a survey from the National MD-PhD survey that we did and has been published. 50%, 52.3, 53% of people in academic medicine who are MD-PhDs are doing more than 50% research in blue. In brownish or light orange is the amount of clinical activities. Most people do some degree of clinical activities. For many years, I was a 50-50 person. I don't have as many papers. I don't have as many grants as some of the people who are doing 100%, but I was a contributor and I developed many original ideas. Because of that, I have over 7,000 citations to my work, even though that I have barely, over 50 publications. So this is about my program. Here we have Brett, Miriam, and Vin. Vin actually, all three are some of our graduates. Brett is at UT Southwestern in a PSTP doing pediatrics. Miriam is a neurosurgery resident at UVA, and Vin is in a PSTP at Stanford. All of these people have gone to places. You will see our outcomes. You need to understand what happens in there. What's the sauce that takes people from one place to another place? So we are looking to equip you with the best skill set to conduct both basic science, but also clinical science research. We're looking to develop leaders in the field in academic medicine and biomedical research. And at the moment, we have students, graduates, doing their residencies at very prestigious R1 institutions like Harvard, Hopkins, Yale, NYU, Virginia, Stanford, Washington University. We have developed faculty who are now faculty at some of these institutions. And so that is a terrific legacy to a lot of the things that happen in a program that is nurturing you. And that's the critical aspect, how well the program can nurture you. As I said, you can go to places from a program that may not be necessarily one of those, frontline paper universities. Now, what is the process that happens? The majority of places are going to be like me, like us. We have 2 years of medical school where you are doing and seeing patients, but the primary aspect during this period of time is you are doing and learning the basics of the science of all the organs systems in the body. And the way it is taught in our case is by teams of a PhD and an MD. And so continuously you are seeing patients, you are evaluating patients every week, but you are starting on Monday with the basic science of that particular area. Now, my MSTP students do rotations prior to medical school 1 and between medical school 1 and 2, and they do clinical and clinical electives rotations prior to taking a step 1 and in between before starting graduate school. Now, during graduate school, while your main focus is to develop your research, to learn how to write grants, to write papers, you are also still doing some clinical activities. We have a lot of student-run clinics health disparity clinics, where our students go there once a month and do and play a role in helping patients. And that allows them to keep their skill set. Furthermore, if you are a cancer biologist, you might be doing shadowing rotations of an adult oncologist or pediatric oncologist the following year, or a radio-oncologist, radiation oncology, or a pathologist. So there are ways to align your PhD with your clinical phenotype so that you are able to be a contributor. Now, even though that you were doing all of these clinical activities during graduate school, you do get a refresher, a boot camp. Let's get the rust out of it so that you are able to be successful in your MS3 and MS4 and finish your clinical electives. What happened after this is people go to places and do residencies, often in research intensive institutions where they are going to be able to do a some clinical activities, and at the same time they are going to have research projects or time protected to do research projects, and that allows them that after additionally 3 or 4 years or 5 years sometimes, where they are being paid about $60,000 to $80,000 to become ready for a faculty position where you may be starting with 150 or more $1,000 as your salary. So your life is taken care of once you enter into this path. We are going to be providing you a mentoring community across this pathway. You are having the same seminars with the same people, with students from all of these years, and they are working together to mentor you and provide you peer support to succeed. And so this is what I meant. There's pieces of medical school, but there's still pieces of graduate school. And even during graduate school, you do have pieces of medical school within graduate school. And likewise, you finish up some projects and manuscripts as you finish your medical school. So it is an integrated program. And many of these students have grants, and we look for undergraduate research as well as senior research thesis. In the end, people graduate from PhD or MDs, and we are the most diverse MSTP in the country. We care. We care. This is an event that happens. Many of our MD-PhD students were there, and certainly, Black Lives Matter and white coats for Black Lives Matter. And that's an important thing. We have diversity of thought. Okay, that's critical. You need to understand how to take care of people that have other views, that are different than you do. But you need to also be part of teams that have diversity of thought have been shown to be more innovative than people who have the same ingrained, the same school of thought. So diversity is important. Now, our students, as I said, go to places. Here is another class. Now, look at our outcomes. We are a top 5 out of 110 programs in the number of students who have NIH F30 awards. 86% of our students graduated with at least an individual grant during their training as MSTP. During their training, they got 4.7 manuscripts. Another important thing, their portfolio includes basic science and clinical sciences. So in the meantime to graduation is under the national average of 8.6 years, 7.9. So we are competitive, and we have people in places, in multiple places across the country. And, I am extremely proud of each and every single one of my students. My job is to be your advocate and to get you out of a place that may not be necessarily good for you and get you into another place if there is a problem. It does happen every so often. And Unfortunately, I don't have eyes everywhere, and there might have been a toxic person that would join a particular lab, and I need to get the student out. If that's needed, that's okay. That's my job. San Antonio is more than the Alamo. It's a beautiful city, the seventh largest city in the country, but it doesn't feel like that. It has so much outdoor activities that are inside the city. We have 85 miles of trails like this. I live literally 3 minutes away. There's 5 minutes from campus. You can go into the 85-mile trail, and we have a lot of events. We have a symphony, a film festival, etc. Now, there are multiple things that I have done over the years. Recruiting videos. Just put my last name, Cavazos, and MD-PhD, and you're going to find multiple videos in there. And in particular, we do have a channel that has hours of videos about the application, the virtual interviews, the process, etc. There is also a lot of information from the AAMC in this location, and this is done as a community, because we're a community of physician scientists. And if you just look and Google AAMC, MD, PhD, you're going to come up with a site that has a lot of information. Remember, state of residency doesn't matter, and there are options for international students, and you can find them in that location. So I have spoken for the past 30 minutes or so. At this point, I'm going to stop, and I'm going to change my my background, and so let me just put something from my school, and I'm happy to take questions, anybody. You can also write in the the chat if you want. At this moment, I'm actually stopping the recording so that the Q&A will not be recorded.